All right, so get this. Today we're diving into something, well, a little different. We're talking about how being around certain people can actually be bad for you.
Really bad.
Yeah, and we're getting all this from The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Have you heard of it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a
It
classic.
is. And today we're focusing on Law 10, infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky.
Ooh, that's a juicy one.
Right. It's basically saying that negativity and bad luck can be like contagious,
Hmm.
They can rub off on you and mess up your chances of, well, getting ahead.
Exactly. And Green uses all these historical examples to show you just how powerful this idea is.
And one that really got me was the story of Lola Montez.
Oh, Lola Montez. What a story.
I know, right? Before reading this, I had no clue who she was.
Yeah, she's not exactly a household name.
But her life is like straight out of a movie. It's wild.
It really is. Okay, so imagine this. It's the 1840s, Paris, and Lola Montez arrives on the scene. Ambitious, driven, you know the type. And she quickly gets involved with this powerful journalist, Alexandre Dujarier.
Okay, so it sounds like a glamorous love story. But I have a feeling it doesn't end well.
You got it.
Uh,
Their whole affair ends in tragedy when Dujarier is killed in a duel.
a duel, wow.
Yeah, and it was all because of his relationship with Lola.
Seriously.
Oh, yeah. It totally trashed her reputation in Paris. I mean, you'd think that would be the end of her, right?
Right. Especially back then, a scandal like that.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Lola, she doesn't just fade away. Somehow, she becomes the mistress of King Ludwig of Bavaria.
Seriously.
Yep. And not just any mistress. She becomes this, major influence in Bavarian politics. It's an insane comeback story.
That is nuts. From a disgraced mistress to influencing a king. How did she pull that off?
I know. It's wild, right? But this is where it gets really interesting thinking about this whole Law 10 thing. Because Lola being with Ludwig, it eventually leads to his downfall. He loses his throne, and her life, well, it kind of spirals downwards, filled with all this bad luck. She ends up dying in poverty, actually.
Whoa, so is this what Green means by infection? Like, her presence basically brought everyone down around her.
That's exactly it. Green's argument is that Lola, maybe without even realizing it, spread her own misfortune to the people she was close to.
That's heavy.
Mhm.
But some people might say, well, maybe Lola just made some bad choices.
Oh, totally. That's a valid point.
Yeah.
But Green goes deeper. He's suggesting that some people, by who they are, the things they do, their choices, they can actually attract bad luck, even make it worse.
Interesting. So it's not just bad luck rubbing off on you. It's like the whole vibe someone brings into your life can mess with your decisions, what happens to you.
You got it. And this is where this idea of emotional contagion comes into play. It's this whole thing in psychology, like a proven thing, that says emotions, good and bad, can spread from one person to another. Like, we see it all the time.
Oh, for sure. Like when you're around someone who's super excited about something and you start to feel excited too, even if you weren't before.
Yes. Exactly. Or think about how fast a bad mood can spread in a room. That's emotional contagion in action. We pick up on these cues from others even without realizing it, and it can seriously change how we feel.
Wow. I've never thought about it like that before. This is making me think about all the people I hang out with. Like, are they bringing good energy or are they, secretly dragging me down with their negativity? This is pretty wild, but I gotta say, it's also making me a little nervous. I mean, we can't control everyone's moods all the time, right?
Right.
So are you saying we should just avoid anyone who's having a bad day?
Oh, no, not at all. It's not that simple. Law 10, it's more about, recognizing patterns. It's about seeing the difference between someone who's just going through a rough patch, like we all do sometimes, and someone who's just constantly negative, the kind of person who always seems to be surrounded by drama and bad luck.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. But how does this emotional contagion actually work? Like, is there any science behind it or is it just like a theory?
Oh, no, there's real science behind it. Researchers have been studying it for years. It all comes down to these things called mirror neurons in our brains.
Mirror neurons. I think I've heard of those before.
Yeah.
They're the things that fire when we do something, but also when we see someone else doing the same thing, right?
Exactly. And it turns out they're not just for actions, they play a role in our emotions too. So when we see someone expressing an emotion, like say sadness or joy, our mirror neurons fire as if we're feeling that emotion ourselves.
Whoa, so it's like our brains are literally mirroring the emotions of people around us, even if we don't realize it's happening.
That's the idea. And this mirroring, It can really affect how we feel. Then you add in this thing called social influence, which is like our natural tendency to kind of copy the behavior and attitudes of people we're around. And, well, you can see how negativity can really spread.
Yeah, it's kind of starting to feel like avoiding a cold, but instead of germs, it's like bad vibes we're trying to avoid.
Oh.
Okay, but before we get into how to, protect ourselves from all this, I want to go back to the book for a sec.
Hmm.
What about the story of Cassius and Julius Caesar?
Oh, Cassius. Yeah, he's a perfect example of how negativity can be, well, not just personally destructive, but politically powerful too.
Yeah, remind me, he was the guy behind Caesar's assassination, right?
That's right. And Green, he paints this picture of Cassius as a guy just consumed by like envy, resentment, always unhappy.
So are you saying Cassius was like a walking bad luck charm?
Yeah.
Like his negativity somehow caused Caesar's downfall?
Not exactly. It's more about the effect his negativity had on everyone around him. Imagine being constantly exposed to someone who always sees the worst in everything, always complaining, always scheming. Wouldn't that start to get to you?
No, definitely. It sounds exhausting, honestly.
Exactly. And Green argues that Cassius's negativity, it was contagious. He created this whole atmosphere of suspicion and discontent, which ultimately helped him get other people to join his conspiracy.
So it wasn't just about convincing people to agree with his political ideas. It was like infecting them with his negativity and using that to manipulate them.
Precisely. He turned his negativity into like a political weapon, and it had this huge impact on history.
That's kind of scary when you think about it.
It is, and it brings up a big question. If negativity can be that influential, how do we protect ourselves from it?
Right. Because we can't exactly walk around avoiding every person who seems a little negative. Right. It's impossible.
Of course not. But we can be smarter about who we spend our time with. Law 10, it's not saying become a hermit, it's saying be more discerning.
Okay, so what does that look like in real life? How do we avoid getting infected by other people's negativity?
Well, it starts with being aware, paying attention to the energy of the people you're around. Do they generally seem upbeat, positive, or do they like bring a dark cloud with them wherever they go?
Right, so we need to be more aware of the vibes people are giving off. What are some of the red flags we should look for?
Think about the patterns you see in their behavior. Are they constantly complaining, always talking about their bad luck or the drama in their life? Are their relationships always full of conflict?
Okay, yeah, those definitely sound like signs someone might be struggling with some serious negativity.
Exactly. And remember, this isn't about judging people or cutting them off. It's about protecting yourself. You have to prioritize your own emotional well-being. You deserve to be in a positive and supportive environment.
I agree. So what's the best way to do that? We can't just ditch everyone who's having a bad day, right?
No, of course not. It's about setting boundaries. You don't have to be rude or anything, but you can be strategic about how much time and energy you give to relationships that are constantly draining you.
So maybe limit your time with those people. Keep the coffee dates short. Choose activities that won't trigger their negativity.
Exactly. And on the other hand, make an effort to spend more time with people who lift you up, who inspire you, who are genuinely happy for you when good things happen.
So basically, being more intentional about who we spend time with, choosing people who support our growth and make us feel good.
Exactly. The people we surround ourselves with, they have a huge impact on our lives, whether we realize it or not.
And just to be clear, this isn't about pretending everything's perfect or only being friends with people who are always happy. Life has ups and downs. We all go through tough times.
Absolutely. This is about recognizing the difference between someone going through a rough patch and someone who's just chronically negative. The first person needs our support. The second person, well, maybe they need a little space until they're in a better place.
Makes sense. So what are some of the benefits of having a more positive social circle, besides just feeling good? I mean, does it actually help us succeed?
Well, first of all, it's just more enjoyable to be around people who are upbeat and optimistic. But yeah, it can actually have a real impact on your success.
Oh, really? How so?
When you're around people who are crushing their goals, living fulfilling lives, it inspires you to do the same. It's like this positive feedback loop.
I love that. Like everyone's success helps lift everyone else up.
Exactly. And again, this isn't about using people for their success. It's just recognizing that positive energy is contagious, just like negativity.
This is really eye-opening. I'm starting to see how this Law 10 is about way more than just avoiding bad luck. It's about understanding how powerful our social connections are and making choices to create a more positive and supportive environment for ourselves. Wow, this has been, I don't know, it's really made me think I never realized how much my social circle could affect, well, everything.
It's true, we don't always realize how much the people around us shape, like, our whole view of the world, you know?
Yeah, totally. So before we wrap up, what's the one thing you really want listeners to take away from all this?
I think it's pretty simple, really. Pay attention to the people you spend your time with. Ask yourself, are they lifting you up or are they bringing you down? If you want a more positive life, a more successful life, start by surrounding yourself with positive, supportive people.
That's such good advice. It's like we have more power than we think to create our own, well, emotional environment, right?
Absolutely. And one last thing to think about, okay? Think of someone you know who just like radiates positive energy. What is it about them? What makes people want to be around them? And can you cultivate those same qualities in yourself?
It's a great challenge. I'm going to start thinking about that right now.
Hmm.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into, well, avoiding those unhappy and unlucky folks. And remember, choose your company wisely.